spoke to a lot of people at Suzlon, and they said that we address him as JPC, sir. So we'll also address him as
JPC. Nobody calls me sir.
So he has a vast experience of more than 4 decades in the industry, and he started his career with NTPC and then moved on to Reliance Group as a chief executive officer. Then he was also with the Reliance Power as chief executive officer, then MD and group CEO with Punj Lloyd. And then he moved to Suzlon, and he was group chief executive officer for Suzlon. Thereafter, he became a strategic advisor, taking a backseat. But again, I think, sir, you have taken the role again of chief executive officer, group CEO of Suzlon. But I hope I have introduced you correctly, sir.
Yeah, that's what mailing them profile talks.
So it's a vast experience, and if I keep talking about it, I don't think so I'll be able to justify it. And with that, the forum is yours, sir. We can start off, sir, with your.
How do you want to proceed?
Whatever, sir. It's up to you, sir.
No, it's I'm more used to Q&A. You want me to talk on a specific area that I can speak, then
sir, we
want to make it more of an interactive rather than
yes, sir, of course, sir. So we can start off with the renewable energy sector, sir, and then what is the future in renewable energy that we are going to see, and the opportunities in this sector particularly.
Okay. So shall we?
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah. So good afternoon to all of you. It's a privilege to speak to a bunch of people for ex-service, not ex-servicemen, maybe will become ex-servicemen shortly, and then welcome to the corporate world. Am I clear and audible to everybody?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's nice. Actually, the fact is that I wanted to become like one of you when I was in college. The year 4, I think that's when the Navy used to come to the college and select people, take them to SSB and give them permanent service commission. So I had that bug of services because I used to feel that it's some discipline, force, a good life. More importantly, I used to like that discipline because I had quite a few cousins of mine who were there. So I got through the college, went to SSB, got through and went for medical checkup, thrown out because of underweight. So I was 47 that time, 47 kgs. Somebody advised me to eat, as many kela as possible. I did all that. I had water, I had kela, but still I got rejected. So that's why I got to the corporate sector actually. Other way around. Otherwise I would have been, in Navy. Maybe that's what the fate pushes you where we might want to do something, but something else happened. As Ron said, been in the power sector for more than 40 years. Did practically everything in the power sector. I did the now so-called bad fuel, coal-based, thermal-based capacities as part of NTPC, as part of Reliance. Did the distribution business when Delhi got privatized. I was the first CEO of Delhi distribution business. And did transmission, did trading, and then coal mining as part of developing the power projects. Then did a stint of a couple of years for international EPC company and got into the renewable sector. I'm in the renewable sector since 2016, not long ago, just about 7 years of experience. And in fact, as fate that, like Rohan was saying, in 2020, I thought enough of career in this life. So it was about 41 years, and then did lots of high tension jobs. So then I thought enough, then let me actually see some other part of my life. So I gave up my full-time job. But at the insistence of Siddhant, they continued as a strategic advisor to the group. And I also used to advise a Canadian pension fund called CDPIB. I had a best of my life for 3 years. So I used to just work 10 to 5 at home and did all my whatever reading I couldn't do. I'd done my read. I used to do my reading. I did my Vipassana, which I postponed for so many years. So, of course, COVID took away the traveling thing, but otherwise I would have done some traveling also. But unfortunately, the last year, October, we lost Mr. Tulsi Tanti, who is the founder chairman of Suzlon. Okay. Then it became uh, more of an emotional thing, for me to get back and fill that void. So for 3 years of almost like a retirement, then I'm back into the corporate job this year, April. So that's where my professional journey has been. Now coming to the renewable sector, obviously this is the sector, what's happening in power sector. And everybody keeps talking. And if you don't talk about these days carbon footprint and we're reducing carbon, people think that you don't know anything. So therefore, it's necessary for us to know some lingos about carbon footprint, what happens and things like that. So the same is the case about the green energy. It's now become mandatory for everybody to know about green energy. So renewable energy initially started with more of a, the policy support system. In fact, the wind originally started with more with accelerated depreciation, and it became a favorite for all high net worth individuals like Tendulkar buying a turbine, Aishwarya Rai buying a turbine, finance companies buying turbines because they get depreciation, they get the tax benefits. So that's how the sector went on. And then the regulator used to fix the tariff. Then slowly it became a favorite for captive consumption, mostly in textile industry in Tamil Nadu and places like that. So slowly it picked up. It took almost about 25, 30 years before it actually started moving up. Then came in, of course, global warming and people talking about different things. And slowly the policy support started coming down. In 2017, there was no policy support, but the regulator used to fix tariffs for the PPAs, like when you sell the power. It was going fine, but came in 2017, government introduced competitive bidding in the renewable sector. Then there was a lull, and slowly now it's picked up. Both wind and solar both are picked up. As we speak today, we're almost about 120,000 megawatts of solar and wind, and growing at much faster rate than the thermal, what it had thermal. But then the difference is that here capacity may be large, but because of amount of generation it does for a given megawatt, so your energy terms, it won't be that large. We're still, from these PLFs like wind will be about 30%. PLF means plant load factor. That is for a given capacity, how many units of electricity it generates in a year that's how the plant load factor is calculated. Solar gives around 19-20%. So therefore, while capacity wise, we are at 25% share in terms of installed capacity in the country, but in terms of energy share, it is still about 12-13%. However, the thrust is now to move on to the renewables. Then when the renewables start growing in a big way, you get another problem is because the intermittency of this power. Okay? If you have a thermal power or if you have a gas-based power, it gives you 24/7 power, and as and when you need. But here, it's not as and when you need. It gives power as and when God thinks it. You can take the power out of it because you don't know. Fine, you will have some the assumptions when you put up a plant, like a wind plant, a solar plant, saying what is going to be the wind resource there, what is going to be the solar radiation. You know that, but still it is intermittent. It's not available 24/7. Okay? Then whenever there is an intermittency, then you have an issue of how does the rest of the capacity being met. So the connection with the grid becomes important. Like for example, today, let's say that you have almost about 75, 80 gigawatts. Gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. Sorry, I'm trying to sometimes say in simplistic way, but I'm not demeaning you. But people are not in the power sector sometimes may think that what does all this mean, PLF, gigawatt, things. And that's why for some of you who know about it, please pardon me for that. Trying to take you to the elementary level. Imagine that 70 gigawatts of capacity suddenly at 6 in the evening going out of the grid. Okay. So that's where the problem comes. Like our peak demand in the country today is, we're running around 270, 271, 272 megawatts currently this month. So 70 gigawatt goes away, then how do you bridge that gap? So therefore, the challenge what is being faced in the renewable energy today is that how do you make renewable energy from intermittency to available round the clock? Is what is the biggest challenge what today we face. If you don't sort out the problem, renewables will have a break. The requirement point of view is there's a survey done by CEA. CEA is the Central Electricity Authority, which is the technical body which advises Government of India. They do what is called electric power survey. They do it regularly. They've done survey for 2030. Okay? And then they've done the survey of entire 8760 hours of the year, hourly profile. And they've done 5 different regions because each region in our country has a different load profile seasonally. Okay. South will have a different profile, West will have a different profile, North will have a different profile. So they've done South, North, West, East, and Northeast. And they clubbed all 5 together and to arrive at what is the load curve going to be for 8760 hours. Then on that, they plotted what is the least cost option. Because in our country, the tariff of power is very, very important. If the tariff goes up, the distribution companies, which are generally in losses, instead of supplying power, they do load shedding, which I don't think any one of you will not be aware of load shedding. Okay, we all have passed through. My generation has passed through. I'm sure that your generation also has passed through the load shedding. So some of us have seen more, and some of you might have seen little less. So whenever the tariff goes up, the load shedding happens. The simple reason, also equally important for you to understand, is that on an all-India basis, we generally measure the commercial viability of the sector based on what is the average cost of supply. It's called ACS, average cost of supply per unit, versus what is the average revenue realization per unit. Okay, so there's a sales price minus the purchase price, as simple as that. Okay, so the cost is always higher than the revenue in the country as a whole. Some states could be different, but then as average, this thing even last year, last it was 50 paisa is the difference. Means every unit we are supplying in this country, the utilities lose 50 paisa. That's the commercial position of our country, because power is unfortunately not a commercial subject in the country. Power is more of a socio-political. You don't see somebody going and promising free poles, but they go and promise will give you free power, they will give you up to 200 units free, irrespective of what is your economic state are. Every politician promises power. But nobody promises saying that I will give you free phone or free books or free this thing. So that is the reason why commercially we are not viable. So therefore, tariff becomes important in the country for the power. Why I'm saying all this? So therefore, when they worked out this load curve, they also worked out what is the least cost option to meet this load curve in 2030. Okay. The peak demand at that point of time, they came up saying that currently our installed capacity is about 420 gigawatts. They said we need to go up to 777 gigawatts. That's means roughly about 350 gigawatts is what we need to add from now to 2030, overall power capacity. When they did that, the least cost option, they said is that wind currently at around 40 to 43 gigawatts has to go up to 100 gigawatts. Okay. Then the solar, which is at 73, 75 gigawatts today, has to go up to 300 gigawatts. So between wind and solar, you will have 400 gigawatts from the current 125 gigawatts. That's the potential for solar, for wind and solar. But then this has to be coupled with, as I said, that how do you make it as RTC? There are different ways of flattening the generation curve. One is that you call hybrid plants, saying that put solar and wind together. Okay. So solar has a particular generation potentiality. It generally comes in the morning, let's say 7, 8 o'clock and goes up to 7 o'clock. And different seasons. But when you club these two together, on the day basis, on the yearly basis, your generation profile slightly becomes even. Okay. It doesn't significantly becomes even, but compared to these two being individually, so it becomes. So therefore now, mostly we're setting up hybrid plants, mostly. Okay. And then on top of it, to make it really RTC, is that what you need is storage. Okay. Because when you're generating, when the grid doesn't need, so you can store that, when needs, you give it back. So storage is the most difficult thing today. Okay. Because the batteries you need to use, but the cost of batteries today is very high. So once it comes down, the storage battery will increase. I think maybe in the next 4-5 years, we should see more and more evolving on the storage technology in terms of batteries. Other concept you might have heard is a pumped storage system, pumped hydro, where what you do is whenever power is not required by the grid, you pump the water to an elevation, okay, using the excess power what is available. When the grid needs power, because it's at the elevation, use that kinetic energy and the potential energy to convert into power back. So these are the various ways we are doing now this on the clock. Okay. So biggest challenge, there is a demand for renewables, obviously. We have committed ourselves saying that by 20, 30, 50% by energy, not by capacity. Okay. By capacity, we'll reach much earlier. By energy, our consumption would be based on renewable energy by 2030. In addition to these two, we'll have a small capacity of, biomass, and then even the hydro, just to add to saying that green energy, hydro also they're considering it as part of renewable energy today. But strictly speaking, it's not renewable, but fine. 50% of energy has to come from these sources. So there is a tremendous scope of renewable energy, not just in India, globally, to grow. This is a sector to grow. As far as the power sector is concerned, we will still continue to add coal-based capacity, but at much lower capacity, because we can't completely avoid the coal-based capacity because of what I said in terms of intermittency of renewables. Opportunity is galore. Power requirement fundamentally in India is, unit significant, because we are still at 1,500 units and all that for per capita consumption, which is 1/4 of what's the world average. There is a demand, and we're growing. Normally the elasticity between GDP growth and power growth is almost about 0.95. If the GDP has 0.95 to 1, the GDP has to grow at 7-8%. We don't know. We keep talking about 7-8%. Even if it has to grow at 6%, even the power has to grow at that level. So there is going to be demand. So when there is a demand, the renewables will grow. So therefore, at least for the next 6-7 years, you will see an unprecedented growth happening in the renewable capacity. It provides huge amount of opportunities. But then especially wind, I'll talk a little more on the challenges. It's more easy to do a thermal project relatively. It's all this, take it as relative, or even a solar project, because they're all done within a boundary. Okay, so saying that you have this is my site, this is where I'm setting up my solar, this is where I'm setting up my thermal. But wind is not like that. Wind is done in an open area. There is no boundaries, because you're only acquiring the footprint for putting up a wind turbine, and then you need to acquire right of the way to reach that wind turbine. Okay. And like that, which turbine to turbine, there's a huge gap, because you can't have, otherwise there will be an impact of wind getting reduced. So therefore, it's an open area. Yes, large area is required, but though actual footprint required is less, but overall area for 100 megawatt, let's say 200 megawatt wind, is a huge area required. So, and then the right of ways. So challenges in the project execution are huge. Why I'm saying that is some of the few must be experienced in the projects. So this is one area which gives a challenging opportunities for people like you. The project execution for the wind is a challenging task. Managing the local community in terms of your right of way and reaching there, constructing in remote places, remote locations. They are not closer to the cities, because generally the wind resource is available in remote locations. First of all, wind resource is available only in 8 states in India. Like in South, you have Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, and Telangana. Then you have Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Gujarat and Maharashtra. These 8 states is what rest of the country doesn't have wind resources, but remote locations. Okay. That's one area of opportunity. We are expecting that currently we ever did maximum was 5.5 gigawatts in the wind in the country, which was done in 2017. Thereafter, because of various reasons, it came down. It's been between 1.5 to 2.2 gigawatts. But currently, government is thinking to ramp it up to almost 10 gigawatts a year. Okay. So once you reach to that level, manufacturing, supply chain plays a significant role. So, like supply chain management, I'm sure that some of you must be experts say that's one opportunity, challenging opportunity which provides in terms of wind manufacturing. Wind, because solar is again little more simpler for supply chain, because you're just importing your modules and then setting up the plant. The third area, which is in fact I'm significantly experienced in that in terms of having people like you, is the operation and maintenance of these wind turbines. So we like as a Suzlon, when we supply a turbine, we also do the operation and maintenance for 25 years for the client. Okay. In fact, the two of my colleagues, earlier colleague as well as the current colleague, both of them who are the chief operating officers for our operation business, came from armed forces background. One of them is a brigadier from IIM'B who stayed our operations. Then after he retired, then currently we have a person who has come from Navy. So that's another area of operation services. Opportunities are galore depending upon what is your background, how do you do what you do of this. Before we get on to the Q&A, maybe the challenges what IIM'B says for people like you. I'm sure that with your program in IIM, you must have done something. It is not across the board for everybody. Okay, don't take me that I know everything. Why is he saying I don't know? But generally, in armed forces, you are all good on the expenditure side of the finance. Okay? You are never known for revenue and profitability. Okay? So what is your top line? What is your bottom line? Is never matters for you. What matters for you is that given money, how effectively you spend that money. Okay? How do you get the best value for the money what you're spending? First thing is, are you spending on time? Second thing is, are you spending in terms of getting the best value? But the moment you come into the corporate sector, so it's a different story. Okay? The importance moves from spending to what is the revenue growth you can get and what are the profits you make it, because most of us are listed companies. There are enough stakeholders who are looking at you to increase the share price, the dividends, and things. You are actually running the company on their behalf. Like we have 30 lakh shareholders in our company. Their expectation is, boss, don't talk goody things. Show us the profile in terms of increase in revenue, increase in profitability, increase in earning per share. That's one challenge. Mindset change is what would be required the moment you get into the corporate sector. It's ruthless. As far as that section is concerned, it's ruthless. So every single thing is measured in terms of that what is ROI you provide, what is the return on investment if you employ one of you, that what is the return on investment, measure it in whatever terms, but saying that we got this person, so we put him here. So in terms of what return are we getting for the organization? Okay. That's one area will be a challenge. Second, I understand other day I was talking to Rohan, it's slightly changed in armed forces, but otherwise armed forces is highly hierarchical. Okay. So boss says everybody follows. In corporate sector, it doesn't happen that way. Okay. It's not hierarchy oriented. It's more of a flattish. You may have a designations. Like I said sometime back, I could be a group CEO, but everybody knows me as JPC, period. Okay. So they can question you, they can ask you. If you want to get the work done from the team, it's more of how do you command that respect? How do you make them to unify to your vision? It's necessary for you to share your vision. It's necessary for you to sell that vision, and necessary for you to make everybody aligns with you. It's not, to my knowledge, and again, an outsider, you would know better, it's not necessary for a strategy to be explained to the frontline soldiers there. So a strategy is found somewhere else. You just go and say that, go and do it without thinking twice. They'll just go and execute. Here, it doesn't happen that way. You got to get everybody on the same page in terms of, selling your vision, making them alignment. So I think those are the only couple of challenges what I feel. Otherwise, you bring in a significant amount of strength to the table, your discipline in terms of working, and your managing of the human capital, because the bonding and human, because I always believe that compared to financial capital, human capital is much more important for any organization to grow. So I'm sure that you bring those capabilities of human capital. You bring that your expertise of doing projects in the most difficult situations. You bring lots of more virtues based on your experience, what is there. So to that, if you can add some of these things in terms of how do you actually become a master of a balance sheet. So how do you understand? And then how does the corporate think in terms of top line profitability? And how do you manage the teams in a different sector than the army? it's much different. But I've worked with number of colleagues who are ex-servicemen in my career. But somehow I've seen that they were really very, very popular in terms of managing their teams. While I say it's difficult, but at least my experience says it's the other way around. Okay? So they have been quite successful in terms of managing the workforce, actually winning the confidence of the people, interpersonal relationships wise. So they've been pretty good. So uh, I there are plenty of opportunities, not just in the renewable sector. So in corporate sector, it's a question of where your interest lies, because you need to clearly choose where your interest lies, because that's where you will be able to contribute and succeed. Okay? You can't look at there is an opportunity, I will go, unless you match that opportunity versus your key strengths. A first job you might get, but then again, if it doesn't match your key strength versus expectation of the job, it's neither good for you nor good for the organization. You're right in the beginning, you face that resistance that, okay, where I got into. So even if it takes a little longer, let's say a few months more, a year more, that if you can match your capabilities versus the demand of that particular job, then nothing can stop you. So I think you all bring to the table significant amount of strengths. So it's a question of how do you add. There is no rocket science in corporate sector. It's at the end of the day, it's all human beings. We all manage that. So maybe somewhere the knowledge comes with the working. So in fact, I asked these two colleagues, because I'm meeting all of you with that background, so that how did they face this problem? And they walked out and straight away got into this. So one of them who came out of IIM'B said that most of the job I knew, except some part of it, but I didn't know the revenue, numbers, balance sheet. He said first 6 months I used to sit every day with my CFO for about 2 hours to understand what is all this jargon, what is this, how do you measure, what do you do. He said thereafter there was no going back. He said rest of the things anyway I know. I knew the job, I know how to manage people. So it's been very successful for us in the company. The same is the case with the other person. Basically, you got to get back. It's equally important for all of us. My belief is that there's nobody who has reached the pinnacle of saying that I know everything. Impossible. Like even in the power sector today, I keep telling my colleagues that even after 42 years, I don't understand the sector fully. Because if you move, it's so complex sector, if you move one lever, without your knowledge, 2 or 3 levers move somewhere else. Okay? So therefore, there is nothing like I know everything sort of a thing, that you got to keep learning and keep growing. So till the last day of quitting the job, thereafter. So professionally, there's always more to learn. I think this is my simple, and obviously I'm not a great expert. I can just share my experiences and what are my views. Need not be they are the best views, or need not be they are the views. So the whole thing I agreed was that I can tell you that what I know, frankly. Okay? And some of it could be useful to you to take it. Some of it is not useful. Just forget it, throw it in the dustbin, clean your mind, and move forward. So I'm open for more of a Q&A rather than the monologue. So I'm willing to take these. We have about 30 minutes. Whatever questions you have. So,
Yes, sir. I'll moderate the Q&A, sir.
yeah.
Yeah. Archu, sir, you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah. Yeah, JPC, I've got actually 4 points. First is a question, one is a suggestion, and one is a submission. And first point I'll take it as I beg to differ with what you told with regard to the armed forces officers, because I feel that what you can save is a definitive revenue which is it in hand than what you're going to produce and what you're going to sell. Okay, so there I beg to differ. But however, my first question to you is, your founding pillars of Suzlon, as we look at it, is very much in line with what we in the Indian Army do. But you having rich experience with having worked with NTPC and then with Reliance and now heading this organization, what is that culture or what is that which you are bringing in as a value which is for Suzlon specific, which is not there in rest of them, which becomes your brand value? This is my question to you first. Second is my suggestion. My suggestion is, like the Windman, he was part and parcel, and then, as you are also in line with the Panchamrit of the COP26. But what I feel is, sadly, the entire cantonments of the Indian subcontinent, the entire country gets left out which is very, very a fertile ground for, let it be solar or for wind energy, in which you are already progressing into. Has any measures been taken wherein this can be incorporated, because we are the biggest estate owners in the entire country? That is my second suggestion. Maybe you can have a look at it. And my third submission is something like what you said, like your company is powering for a greener future, greener tomorrow. I'm sure with what our commitment and our integrity and our discipline, I'm sure we are able to be of some use to you in days to come. That's it, JPC.
Yeah. I think on the first point, I completely agree. In fact, more than the armed forces, I think that every housewife is that way the great financial manager. Okay. They know how to manage the budget. So therefore, that way we learn our first financial management from our mothers. Value for money. So there's no second opinion on that. I agree that whatever you save is what is the profitability for the organization. And as far as what I'm trying to do or what we're trying to do at Suzlon is a couple of things. One is we've been pioneers in this sector in the country. Okay? And we're the largest. We today have, we operate about 14,000 megawatts in this country. And we have 33% of the market share of the entire installed capacity today. Whenever you are a pioneer, whenever you are grown large, comes with it the disadvantages. Okay? Your learning curve significantly drops because you think that we are big, we know everything, nobody can need to teach us. Okay? But then what happens is externally, the sector keeps moving much faster than what you imagine. So two things are happening. One is you stop growing, learning. On the second side, the sector, whether it's players or the policy or the regulations or the way you do the projects, timing of the projects significantly keeps changing. So the gap between you and what is the reality keeps increasing. So how do you make your entire team to believe that, yes, we can be proud of our past, but that doesn't take us into the future. So every day it is changing. We got to, if you got to maintain our leadership role, then obviously we need every day to learn and change with the external environment. That's a challenge, which is what we're trying to now bring in that culture of maintaining the, how do you maintain the leadership and don't feel that we are kind of constantly keep thinking that we know everything because we are the largest player. That's happened to many organizations globally. Okay, so there are plenty of examples who refuse to take the change, taking the change in the sector. There's a BlackBerry, there are plenty of stories. Okay, so refuse to see the change, what's happening in the sector, then you die. Okay? That's a big challenge for us today, which is what we're working on. Second is which will answer your second question, and third suggestion is that as we keep moving, the good wind resource sites would keep coming down. Okay, so how do you then do we stop developing the wind? No, it can't be, because it's for future generations we owe it. So constantly keep developing your turbines, which become efficient at the lower wind speed sites. The point what you asked that, how do you actually use the vast tract of land? Is that keep developing things. Like, for example, we just launched a 3 megawatt turbine, which the rotor diameter itself is 144 meters. And the two ways you can keep increasing the efficiency is, one is that you keep increasing your rotor diameter, and then second is you keep increasing your hub height. We are now going up to 160 meters. And the design turbines in a manner that which are actually efficient at the low wind speeds. So the next set of products what we bring in would be for sites which are actually the wind resource is poorer. So that's how you keep on monetizing the lower wind sites, which we think today are not potential wind sites, into a good wind sites. That's one which we do because we do have a strong technology, in-house technology. We are the only wind manufacturers in India, Indian manufacturer who has in-house R&D. And our entire R&D setup, means core team sits in Europe, so that's where the brain power lives. And that's what we keep doing it. So I think that's your second and third. First one, I completely agree. Fourth one, I take it. I take note of it.
And good luck to you to become the pioneer in the world very soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, Manpreet, you can go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, JPC. Commander Manpreet from Navy this side. First of all, let me congratulate you on Suzlon for RLM listing of your new S144 turbine.
Thank you.
And second, even listing in your MSCI exchange. And we
Yeah,
have
last week.
seen the effect in the market that your company stock has gone 8 to 10% up and 52 weeks high. So congratulations to the Suzlon. My question is that, as you have told, we are aware that wind is a variable source of energy and intermittent source. Now, though, as you have told, that we can supplement it with the hybrid, like solar or even hydro. But given the climate change which is happening, patterns are changing. So, don't you think this is going to be a challenge in the future to meet the targets which we are setting? And or do we have to in future again really fall back onto the thermal option or any other option?
Obviously, Manpreet, I'm not an astrologer to say that. But one thing I share with you is that risk of climate change, unpredictable climate change, is what we are all facing. Okay, that's for clear. Sometimes the way the wind is dropping in few years, it happened in 2019. Significantly, wind fell down. Okay, so the entire generation came down significantly. That impacts your profitabilities because you're not generating enough. Your capital cost is incurred. It's slightly picking up. So that those issues, set of issues, will continue to be there. The challenges have to be there. Therefore, in power sector, what happens is your planning has always to be dynamic. Okay. So you should be in a position to see that, okay, if this is happening, quickly ramp up some of your thermal capacity, which is what the country is doing today. So even now we are planning for some thermal capacity, ramp up thermal capacity, and then meet those requirements. It's a dynamic, but only thing in power sector is that any of these things will decide, especially thermal, as a long gestation period.
That is correct.
So sometimes you get into problem. I don't know. I'm sure that some of you must be from Delhi, at least experienced of Delhi. Especially I'm talking about 90s. Okay. Every summer, Delhi used to have a huge amount of power cuts. Okay. And the voltage used to be low and the equipment used to get spoiled. In summer, everybody used to talk about that. Okay, then we need to get our own power plants in Delhi and things like that. The summer cools. Okay, you get into August, September, everybody's forgotten. Nice weather, everything is fine, and then you get back into that. So sometimes power sector will get into that mode. So, but it's unfortunately power sector is a long gestation period. You need to constantly on the move, and challenges because of unforeseen climate are going to be there. So we all know that. So today you can't predict when the rain is going to come in the city. Okay. You can't think this is winter, sorry, it doesn't rain, or this is something else. Earlier we used to know Diwali means ek do showers aayega, something like that. But today is no question. None of us can really predict. So the temperatures or things like that. We are going through those challenges. I think we need to recognize that, and we need to be prepared for that. And in the process, we will also have issues because sometimes you're not well prepared. It takes time. So we will face those problems. We have to recognize that as we are in that challenging situation as far as the environment is concerned.
Thank you, JPC.
Answer, you can go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, JPC.
Good afternoon.
Panel Anand here. I just had a small question. When you mentioned that you were looking at taking in veterans for your Suzlon activities, while going through your website, I also found that you have adopted digitization in a big way, where you have some supervisory control and data acquisition system, SCADA, that's in-house developed by you. Now, with all these things, would it not be that human intervention is lessened? Then, if that is so, then how do you find the role of veterans? Are you, because yours is a build, commission, set up, operate, and this thing. So where do you find the role of veterans? You find the role of veterans in execution part, or you find the role of veterans that once it is installed, because all people may not come with a background of engineering or something. There may be. I mean, I'm a EME officer. I'm a EME aviation officer, but everyone may not come with a.
See, SCADA is common in most power sectors where you can remotely operate your turbines. Sitting in Pune, we operate our turbines, and globally wherever we are operating, wherever we have our turbines. That's different from maintaining a turbine. Okay, so every turbine needs maintenance. It needs that predictive maintenance. It needs that preventive maintenance in those
Yes.
remote locations.
Yes.
That's a very challenging task. The reason why I said a couple of my colleagues who are heading the operations business happen to be ex-servicemen is because that's a challenging job. You have your people like you have in armed forces in extremely remote locations. All these wind sites are extremely remote locations.
Okay.
And no habitation, least amount of habitation, and things like that. It's exactly like what you people have with infantry and other people on this.
Yes.
So how do you keep motivating them? And how do you ensure that they timely do the preventive maintenance or the predictive maintenance? Or when the turbine goes down, how do you actually ensure that there are sufficient spare parts there? Logistics is a challenge. Are there, and how do you maintain? Because we actually try for 97 to 98% uptime for a turbine in a year, time-wise. Okay? So that's an extremely challenging job. So there, obviously, the SCADA doesn't help. Because at the end of the day, it's human resource who is there. So how do you motivate them? How do you ensure that these people work in the remote? Is a great challenge for us to do. Second is the entire supply chain management. Okay. So if you want to manufacture a wind turbine, there are hundreds and hundreds of components.
Yes.
Most of them come from India for us, and many of them come from outside. And some of those components are single source because you don't have multiple sources. So maintaining the supply chain, because the timelines are different for different products, you don't want your working capital to get locked up. How do you ensure the timely availability, which you all know? Okay.
Yes.
So, and especially supply chain in army is the most important thing. If that breaks down, then we're gone.
You can't
So
find
therefore, that's one significant area where the veterans can contribute. Third area is the manufacturing itself.
Okay.
I'm sure some of you will have a manufacturing background. And the fourth is the project execution. It's a big challenge. Like operations is steady state operations where you're doing it. Project execution, every single day you get a problem. So today you complete your job, went to your camp, came back, next day morning you can't reach because some local villagers stop you. Right away, it's not there. Okay. And more importantly, to take let's say this 144, what got RLMM this thing done, to take those blades of that length to the location, you can imagine. You can take it on a highway at least somewhere. So, but then, you do a route survey, then you'll find number of bridges to be strengthened. You got to get it done. Then once you reach the highway, then obviously you need to go interior from highway. How do you reach there? Which is what you guys do. Okay. So when you work in the front line of the country, then obviously you don't have a greatest of infrastructure. You decide then and there, build and do that. That's a huge, huge strength for building projects. When first time you transport your turbines. So there are plenty of areas where your experience actually matches with what is required. Okay. I can keep going on. So
okay.
And then I've seen ex-servicemen are greatest in administration. Every single organization I worked, I ensured that my administration is headed by ex-servicemen. They're extremely good in administration. Cleanliness of offices, having proper systems, messes, ensuring that people get what they want. And then not only here, you can see the most private sector organizations, generally you will find 7 out of 10, at least 7 out of 10, the function of administration headed by ex-servicemen. They've proven the credentials there in a big way. Means security and administration put together.
Okay.
There are plenty of areas.
Okay. Thank you.
Commander Cherit, please go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Commander Cherit, sir, engineering officer in aerospace sector, sir, currently in R&D organization. So, sir, you had mentioned that along with your product, you offer 25 years of OMS, sir. I felt that was very interesting. Sir, may I know the challenges you face in sustaining a product for 25 years, sir? Is it through design or how do you sustain a project, especially because it is open to elements? And secondly, sir, what are the challenges in process improvements, sir, in generation and distribution or maintenance of what are your main challenges currently?
See, the sustaining the operations basically comes from the design stage. When you're designing what material you're choosing, what engineering you're doing it, because you decide the life cycle of each component. Every single component is tested, designed that way. So therefore, it is supposed to operate for that. But there are some components in the turbine. Each component can't be 25 years. You know that any machine. I'm sure that many of your machines also will be like that. Some components would be 5 years, some components would be 10 years, Some of them could be 20 years, but you know clearly lifetime of each of the component. Okay. That comes from the design stage. So normally you try to see that, you keep those space, the life is over, and how do you get them done? Another one is unforeseen breakdowns. Okay. So for whatever the reason, so how do you maintain your space? And that's a challenge in OMS, nothing but that. And more importantly, the in OMS of wind turbines, especially because solar is cakewalk for doing operations. There's nothing once you establish a plan. Wind is your man management. As I said, it again comes back to that, because how do you keep your forces motivated in those remote locations and ensure that every day morning they're charged up to go to the turbine and see that my turbine doesn't come down less than 98% of uptime in the year. How do you keep that happening is what is important for us. So those are the biggest challenges for us to do the operation services. So that is the reason why today we get a lot of contracts for sale of turbines, because we also do OMS. Because we make it risk-free for the investors. So we are known for that. We are known for good operation services, providing plus 97% of uptime. So ensuring that, the turbines never lose generation. But that area is the biggest challenge. Projects and operations are the biggest challenge. When I say projects, logistics, including logistics, especially with the larger turbines, they're the biggest challenge. Other than that, of course, common challenges in any organization remain. I'm sure that it remains for you also. For me, the people are always a challenge, wherever they are. So how do you make each day your team motivated to work is a challenge for any leader. The day we take our team for granted, then we're finished. I think that's the day we start spiraling down. So therefore, how do you create the compelling vision for everybody to feel excited, saying that, okay, I'm proud to be in Suzlon. This is what we want to be. Like mentioned, that we continue to be the pioneer. So how do you want to do that? How do we share that vision? It's a challenge. And I think that's exactly the same what you keep movies, whatever we see in armed services, Josh High, how do you actually create that type of motivation team, whether it's in armed services or here, it's the same. It's your team which delivers for you at the end of the day. SCADA doesn't deliver. At the end of the day, SCADA enables, helps. So it improves your performance. But ultimately, that human power is what decides everything.
And I asked about process improvement, sir. Process improvement, where you would be focusing on, sir, currently?
Process improvement is actually a continuous thing. There's nothing like we have the best of the process, because you design one process, you implement it, then after some time you will see that there are issues which are, not this. Today, for example, we're working on an operation that expectations of people are changing now from giving me 97% uptime to give me separately commit uptime during the high wind season and the low wind season. It's not that on an annual basis you give me 97%. So how do you ensure your process improvement happens that in the high wind season, where the generation becomes maximum, your turbines operate? How do you complete your preventive maintenance before the high wind season? So that whole process and the quality of your preventive maintenance, like digitization, one of you talked about, how important it is to do a through digitization, check each turbine is done. From the remote location, how can you upload saying that, okay, this turbine I had done it, these are the issues which I fixed. So how do you have that record of each turbine? So these are the process improvements, especially with more digitization coming in. The process improvement is becoming much more easier. At the same time, much more in terms of more processes coming in.
Thank you, sir.
Commander Nikhil, please go ahead with your question. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sir, I'm Commander Hegde from the Navy, sir. Very heartening to hear that Army Brigadier was in your team and now a naval officer. My forte lies in ocean sailing, and my question to you is, I'm sure some R&D must be happening to harness the sea breeze other than the land breeze. There are a lot of lighthouses on the west coast because of the shallower depths. So what are the challenges you're facing in implementation, and is there any kind of a plan to harness the sea breeze? Because I've seen good 15, 20 knots of wind right up to 20 nautical miles. We sailed mid-ocean 50, 60 knots. So my question to you is there some kind of R&D happening, and are you looking into it?
Yeah. See, offshore, that's what we call it, offshore wind turbines, is an established business globally. Like, in fact, Europe and all that is very common to offshore. In fact, they do more of offshore than onshore. The reason they do there for two reasons. One is their land footprint is less for them, so therefore they need to go to the offshore. And second is, as you said, the wind speeds. The difference between the on land versus offshore, the wind speed difference is too high. The generation difference for, let's say, I have a 3 megawatt turbine to be set up onshore versus a 3 megawatt turbine to set up offshore is huge. Because the generation gap is huge, the cost though goes up substantially for offshore wind turbine, because in terms of design, or you know it because you are working in the shows, the installation cost would significantly go up. Okay. But still, because the incremental generation is so high, their offshore has become quite popular, and which is happening. But in India, we're talking. In fact, the government of India is on record saying that we will do offshore project before 2030, first project. Unfortunately for us, one is we're not in that emergency of not having the footprints on the ground. Basically, you can go to offshore only because the incremental generation, what you get in the offshore, is much higher than the onshore. But most of offshore, when you look at the incremental generation, what you get is not significantly higher compared to the cost increase in terms of installation. So, for example, today, when you set up an onshore wind turbine, the cost per unit is somewhere around 3 rupees, okay, including your returns and everything put together. People are willing to sell you power at 3 rupees. Same thing, the moment you go to offshore, it becomes 8 to 9 rupees today. Because the cost of turbine increases, but generation is not increasing significantly. So initial projects government of India is trying to do is that by providing some viability gap funding and then make it happen. We will ultimately do it, but in India, but in my opinion, it is going to be significantly long term before it actually becomes commercially viable. As I told you sometime back, the tariff is high. No distribution company will sign power purchase agreement. They will say, thank you very much. So that's a problem of offshore in India. But otherwise, offshore, the world over is very, very popular, especially in Europe. You find more offshore than onshore.
Thank you, sir.
Pranal, Akash, please go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, Mr. JP. Firstly, thank you so much for this insight towards this renewable energy. I have one submission since most of us are sitting, and when you spoke about this revenue generation part, most of us definitely feel us little bit left out, because in every resume or everything which we tell, we only tell about how we, as you mentioned, that we only speak about how we spend the money, and very effectively we spend the money. But I'm sure most of us, and majorly the people from logistics, since I'm from ordnance, which deals with logistical supply to the Indian Army, we have another aspect of, firstly, the equipments are certain equipments which are age old, and it takes time for them from turning into current to obsolete to obsolescence and all that. So we have a lot of inventory which is left out in the stores, and which needs to be again sold and auctioned in a manner as if we are selling a new inventory. So as far as part of revenue generation, it's just an input that yes, we do have, not only in logistics branch, which I belong to, but also in even the minor unit go to such an extent wherein they try to sell the scraps which held in their units to the best possible price. That's just an input for in terms of revenue generation part of it. My suggestion and rather submission here is that I have served in two of the areas where I've found that wind energy can be harnessed to a very large extent. And first is J&K in the Leh sector, wherein my Air Force counterparts will agree that after 12 o'clock, they are not even allowed to fly the aircraft because the wind velocity is so high. And secondly, the Arunachal, where I have served, wherein so many small little projects are coming in remote locations where there is no electricity, and even the army per se kinds of contribute for the community there, wherein we install certain projects which are either run on wind energy or on solar energy, which has a huge scope. So, since you are mostly aligned towards the southern and western part of the country, is there any plans of extending yourself towards JNK and towards the northeastern states also, given the kind of wind energy which they have? Thank you.
Right now, it's not on the radar. Right now, we as a country are looking at the huge solar projects coming up in Ladakh and other areas. Huge, large capacities, because they feel that that's has the highest potential. On the wind, what happens is if you have a high speed, obviously your product has to be different. Your turbines are designed for a particular wind regime. So I'm not an expert on the JNK area of wind resources because I never heard about it. But even if it is there, then obviously then there's a different, the current tower model, if you go and put up there, it won't work. But the moment higher wind speed is there, these turbines won't work. Every wind model what you bring out is actually works in a particular range of the wind speed. And that's what it has to be. And generally our country, compared to the Europe and other places, we are a low wind speed regime. So in fact, the turbines, what we design for India won't fit for Europe. Similarly, for other people, what they design for Europe doesn't work in India. So we need to keep modifying it. I have no answer that GNK, what is the potential? I have not come across. So therefore, I don't have a ready-made answer of what is the wind potential, why it is not being done. Frankly, I have no clue. So, but I know that there's a significant solar capacity getting added in JNK, big, huge capacity. And they're laying the transmission lines exclusively for that, to bring the power back into the mainland India.
Thank you.
Yashwant, you can go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Lieutenant Commander Yashwant Charan from Navy, and presently I'm in SSB only, which from where you
Which rejected me. I got rejected in Bhopal.
I am GTO in Bhopal in SSB only, sir.
I wish I came now.
And sir, I am from Jodhpur, and I did my schooling from Jaisalmer, where there is a Suzlon wind farm.
Yeah, huge. Yes.
And whenever I used to go to school and all those areas, some Temdarai and all where the wind farms are there, where I used to see that some wind farms are working, windmills are working, some are not working. And then I was a small kid and I used to ask my father, why not use the solar thing with this wind thing? Like in solar farm, you have to acquire a lot of land. But in wind, there is a tower, which is almost 80 to 120 meter. Why not build a wind tower, which is capable of converting solar energy also into electric energy, where when there is no wind, at least the solar energy will be there. So is there any process going where this can be combined?
Yashwant, I remember your name and refer you to my CTO. Chief Technology Officer, take your sports and design. So, no, frankly, we're not heard because we heard of interposing the solar between the wind turbines. Okay. So actually, there are few states where wind and solar both are equally good. Like, for example, Rajasthan is one place where there's a wind potential as well as solar potential. I've heard of putting the solar panels in the same area where wind is there, but obviously taking care that shadow doesn't fall. In certain areas of wind turbine, you really can't have solar because it doesn't. But if you put on a large tower, the solar, it's not going to increase the solar energy by increasing the height of these things. Solar energy is whether it's underground or it's at the higher elevation, because it's a question of how much you are exposed to sun. So when you go up, if it is in an open area, when you go up or on the ground, your time you're exposed to sun remains the same. Unless you're trying to set up a solar in a city, that's where you do a rooftop, because you can't do it on the ground. One is land is not there, second thing is shadows, the rooftop. But in an open area like Jaisalmer or other places, you don't need to do a solar on the towers because it's only you're only increasing the cost or increasing the generation capacity. The one who is saying turbines are not operating is be sure that the turbine doesn't operate 24 hours, wind turbines, because it only operates when there's a wind. So sometimes you see it's not running, it stands still, but it keeps running. So that's the reason I said in a year, the wind is only about 30%, 31% generation produces. So that means balance 70% of the time there is no wind. So it doesn't generate electricity.
Sir, my question was
so
that
that's
why not build why not build a tower which is made of solar panel material, where right now it is white. Generally, it is white everywhere.
No, you can't, because the weight of rotor and the hub and the nacelle, what your wind turbine is huge. So therefore, the tower has to have that strength, and especially when that large diameter of rotor is rotating, you can imagine what should be the strength of the tower.
So
Especially it is today we're talking about 140, 160 meters height. Then you can imagine the tower strength what it should be for taking that 144 meters rotor diameter, and along with that the entire your generator, everything sits there on the top, okay, in the hub. So it's impossible to do a tower design with any other material. No way.
so
It
secondly,
can't. It will collapse.
second question is that when the land acquisition is done for like farm, so all the land between two wind towers is acquired, or it is just that?
No, we acquire the footprint where we put the foundation and some additional area for assembly, and then we take the pathways to reach the turbine either on the right of use, or some places we buy it. Generally, you take it on the right of use, saying that we pay the farmers X amount of money per year for right of use. So in between the turbines, it's a free land. People will cultivate, do whatever they want to do.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Sir, we'll overshoot by 15 minutes if it's okay, sir, because I have got a couple of more questions.
One second, just check my calendar. Yeah, we can.
Okay. Gentlemen, please keep your questions short. Sudipta, please go ahead with your question.
Hi JP, Sudipta here. So in today's global scenario of renewable energy, Suzlon is a force multiplier in providing solution to its customers that covers the entire spectrum of wind energy projects. And it's a privilege for me to interact with you today. So as I was looking forward to connect myself with Suzlon, I could see that one of the solutions provided by Suzlon is in the form of wind turbine generators, WTG, which you call. So the organization also pioneered in the concept to commissioning, and I feel this requires immense backup for sustenance and maintenance of this entire wind turbine generators, starting from projection, capacity planning, and then movement of nacelle blades, component towers, and foundations, like you mentioned, from procurement hubs to inventory location. So my question to you is that what are the areas of opportunities to look for within Suzlon for a person having background and expertise in supply chain management with an additional ground knowledge in operations management and service delivery management while working in a global e-commerce brand, and contribute to the strategic end of the business?
Yeah, it could be. Sunita, yeah, as I said in the beginning, it all depends upon where are your areas of strength. How do you match your strengths to the organization needs? The moment we're able to match both, it's a win-win for both. Organization gets benefited and you get benefited. So therefore, as I said sometime back, the opportunities are galore in terms of supply chain is what I in my opinion, I know little of services, but whatever I know is your expertise is in supply chain. It's in manufacturing, like garments factories and everywhere somebody has come from that background. Including quality control, because quality control is extremely important in terms of the defense equipment. So that's there. Then again, logistics, which again, you people have a significant strength depending upon which area you work. Then the projects, then operational maintenance, and the administration. Name it, depends upon which segment of the work you worked earlier. Though I'm just trying to see that, how do we match that strength versus organization need. So there will be plenty of opportunities. So it's very difficult to point out, but to the extent what I know, these are the areas like supply chain or the logistics or the projects or the operation services, or the quality control, administration. These are the areas where significant amount of opportunities can exist. So, and then we're also working on diversity. So for people like you, there are more opportunity. We're just 2% today. We want to make it 4% at least by March. Then keep growing in terms of diversity as well at the leadership level. So we're also looking for good female executives. So as well. So therefore, that's an added advantage to you if you want to look at Suzlon as a potential employer.
No, definitely. I mean, really, thank you for the guidance, JP. Suzlon has always been motivated me the moment I move around in long distance, drives wherein I could see those long blades traveling at night with endless trucks, and it's a sight and always used to fascinate me how they are maintaining the operations, and it's a continuous operations, and one failure could lead to load shedding, and how they are moving, how they are doing the capacity planning, how they are doing the project planning, so that today if it is traveling, obviously this might have been planned a month back or 6 months back. So it has always fascinated me. So I'm quite interested in how in the operations of Suzlon. So that's why I fielded the question.
Yeah,
How
we actually, in the wind business, like especially for us, we do on a 3-year rolling plan. So we really can't make the next year plan. So we actually make a 3-year rolling plan. So first year is a very detailed one. Then the second year on a quarterly basis, third year on a half-yearly basis. And we keep rotating it. Every time, any point of time, we have a 3-year rolling plan. So then only you can actually work. So it's all, everything is long-term in terms of wind business.
Got it. Thanks, JP. Thanks for your inputs.
Colonel Kalu, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, sir, I'm Jivtesh, and I'm from aviation background, and likewise, I have also flown over one of the largest plants at Jaisalmer, which was was developed by Suzlon. So my question or a suggestion or a submission kind of thing, it's that since you say that now over a period of time these winds are slowed down, and as the environment goes, it's going to continue like that. And with the government saying that we need to reach to about 500 gigawatts of renewable energy and about 140 of that to be from the wind energy. And presently we are at about 43 as of March 2023. So in case this has to increase, I'm sure Suzlon must have something in mind to increase the kind of the motors that they're making, the wind turbine generators, which may even work at a lower wind speed. So is there something like that, or something happening on that line, sir?
Yeah, that's what we do. Like, for example, I said, we used to have small machines of 0.75 megawatts and things like that. Today, we come up with 3 megawatts. And our rotor diameters have moved from 60 meters today to 144 meters, the latest one which we now offered in the market. Similarly, what we do is we also keep increasing the height of, because the wind speed keeps increasing when you keep going up. We all know. Okay. And obviously, we get into your area because now these days, Air Force clearance is a mandatory for all the wind turbines. And that is where most wind turbine companies keep crying, saying that Air Force takes a lot of time. Okay, so we keep going to Minister of AMNRE and keep crying that please help.
Been there, so I can understand that. Sir.
Yeah. I thought that, I got out of Air Force because when I was in thermal, we always used to have this Air Force clearance for chimneys.
Sir.
Okay. So for a chimney, you always need Air Force clearance. Anyway, but when you keep going up, so obviously the speeds, this thing. So that's where the sites which you think are not really remunerative today becomes remunerative when the new model comes. So it's a constant development because unlike solar anywhere else, you need a huge amount of constant, continuous investment in your R&D in terms of wind.
Sure.
Any model what you bring in, shelf life is 3 years.
Okay.
So after 3 years, that's obsolete. It's gone. Okay. Then by the time you need to develop your new model. So right now, 3 megawatt we introduced, we're already working on the 4 megawatt and 5 megawatt turbines. Right. And we're also working on the turbine, which will actually work in the low wind speeds. So which is where, how do we make those sites more useful? So it's a constant evolution. You've got to do it. That's how we can increase the capacity.
Understood, sir. Absolutely, because to align with the government, this thing, since they have put such a huge target they have for themselves, so I'm sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Suresh, quickly, one-liner question.
Good afternoon, JPC, sir. I am Lieutenant Colonel Suresh. I'll keep my question short due to paucity of time. Does Suzlon have any plans to explore the untapped water bodies? Because I believe if using solar panels on a water body will reduce the land acquisition costs substantially and increase your bottom line.
Yep. See, if you want to do on the water bodies, what we call the floating solar plants. Right? So which is what that helps both Two ways. One is it reduces the evaporation of water, especially when you're doing on the lakes and things like that. So, and second is you don't need to use the land. That's the reason why the floating solar is thing. But anything you do not on the land mass, get onto the water side, the cost of insulation goes up. Okay, so there has to be a balance between saying that, okay, what are you saving? Let's say that let's say for example NTPC. So it has a plant, it has a huge reservoir for meeting the requirement, water requirement, because they already have a reservoir. So they don't need to acquire the land. Within the same plant, in the same land, they can go and set up a solar plant because there's no additional land cost, additional these things. It makes sense. That's why the floating is coming up. It's becoming slowly popular. As far as the wind is concerned, which is what we discussed, offshore wind turbines are quite common. But in India, it is still expensive at this stage. The cost of generation is very high, 8 to 9 rupees per unit. So it's still not become popular. It might at some point of time once the cost of turbines comes down for offshore.
Thank you.
Colonel Praveen, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I am from Army. I'm from the IIM'B maintaining helicopters. I have a question regarding the current buzzword, and rightly so, is AI. So is it disrupting your industry, your business? One. Secondly, apart from the conventional roles that corporates feel veterans fit in, are you open to considering us for strategy, R&D, those kind of roles? Thank you.
See, I'll ask the second one first. Philosophy is simple. As far as I'm concerned, my organization is concerned, we are willing to look at every single human resource, what they bring to the table. Okay, if what they bring to the table is what we need, we're looking for, and that's a good strength, we just go ahead and hire. So we never go out with the reservation that we need to look for here, look for there. It's a question of what anybody brings to the table. So that's why I said sometime back there are enough opportunities. It's a question of what strengths you bring to the table, and we will be able to evaluate and take them. So I don't think there's any issue in that. What was your first question? Sorry, too many questions I'm forgetting also, and also my age.
Disruption caused by AI. And how are you coping?
I don't know what is the meaning of disruption, because it has two types of meanings. One is disruption is that in a constructive way. Second is the disruption what you're seeing in social media on AI.
Constructive ways.
Constructive. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously it's still new. It's expected to play a significant role in terms of your manufacturing in every other place, especially in operations and AI. For my generation, obviously AI is good to talk and good to read something and do that. I don't have an expertise in terms of AI. But then my younger colleagues keep saying that this is the one which we need to do that. So we're looking at generative AI, how do we integrate with different areas of the business moving ahead. So obviously that's an important area. But if you ask me specifically about AI, where I will use it, so I will score a blank, because I'm not an expert there, frankly. Okay, so but my colleagues who are there in that area is what they're looking at this, and how do we bring AI into different systems, process within the company. We are looking at it. Where are we looking at right now? I have no answer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Gagan sir, please go ahead with your question.
Sir, good afternoon. Fortunate to hear from you, sir, and thanks to the placement committee to get this webinar arranged. Simple question, sir. Being a energy and the natural resources company, by any chance, this sustainability and ESG, is it also on your radar? Do we have a policy or strategy in place for Suzlon to be an ESG leader among power companies in India? Where do you see in terms of ESG preparedness and readiness of Suzlon to position itself as a market leader in sustainability design and so on, sir? I had more questions, but I'll just keep it to one only, sir. And thanks a lot for your time today, sir. Yeah.
First of all, ESG is mandatory. Okay, whether I like or dislike, ESG is mandatory. You need to. It's now even if you're a listed company, these things have to be produced. It has to go along with your annual report about the ESG. Is one part of it. One is the compliance requirement. Okay, that's fine. But more important is that how do you actually get this integrated into your business is what is more important for us. Okay. That's where we are highly committed to ESG. how do we make this the whole thing in terms of integral part of the business. In fact, this year we started putting in the scorecard of leaders the different targets of ESG, whether it is a DIB index score or different aspects of it. Some places we have a target in terms of their energy conservation, how much they do, or water conservation, what they do, various aspects of it, right up to me, we all have in the scorecards. So that, by initially start this as a driven process, till culturally it becomes integral part. So right now we're in the driving process, making everybody to fall in line, saying it's important, and then say that if you don't do it, it will impact your performance. So hopefully maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, it becomes integral part of the culture. But that's a very, very important area for us. And we have a board subcommittee of ESG, which exclusively looks after ESG.
So that means, sir, we have kind of metrics driven on this, which actually qualify for positioning ourselves, whether it's a power generation or power consumption, or maybe the use of the materials, the use of technologies in place. Sir. Thanks a lot, sir. We'll try to seek some time.
In fact, this directly reports to me, this function. That's important, is what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, we have one last question. Do we go ahead with it? One last question.
Yeah, sure.
Peter, sir, please go ahead with your question. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Hereafter, no more questions.
Good afternoon, JPC.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for this time that you spent. My first interaction with windmills happened to be not by like how people have seen them coming up in the deserts of Rajasthan, but I happened to pick up slow-moving objects like flock of birds moving, and it took us some time to realize that on the radar we were picking up the winds that were generated by the windmills. So that was my first interaction. My question here is basically the Indian peninsula is blessed to have diverse climatic terrain and conditions, which is basically the source of renewable energy. Somehow I feel the government is quite lethargic on tapping this in a big way and engaging with the stakeholders. Am I understanding that correctly?
I don't think so. It's the other way around now. So the government is actually, in fact, today the government has done enough, in fact, to bring that interest in the investing community. Today, government actually doesn't need to do much except being an enabler. They don't invest anymore in the sector. They become an enabler. The investment funds today are tremendous. They're actually looking for a way to invest. The maximum FDI is flowing into the renewable sector, and there are various, because today, please understand that the decarbonization has become important for every single company. Okay? There are a number of funds who are saying that we only invest in the cases where these are called ESG funds. They invest only in the clean energy or where the decarbonization projects and things like that. So I don't think today the government has done enough, and even today it continues to show its significant support for the sector. Wherever there are issues, they're willing to walk in and then help. It's actually sector has picked up on its own. It's become a completely commercial sector today. If at all we face challenges of actually execution. How many projects can we do it? Do we have required logistics? In terms of that, do we have so many cranes which can erect at that levels? Do you have a skilled manpower? Skilled manpower today, I think any infrastructure project, skilled people are, one side we talk about unemployment, second side, skilled manpower is not available in this country, unless you train them, put them into the job. So those are the challenges what we are facing in terms of how much can we do, but otherwise it's not because of the government is not supporting or not because of the investments are not being there. So you have a good project, you can attract investment in no time.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all. Sir, thank you very much, sir. We have a tradition of clicking a photograph at the end of the session, sir.